Welcome to Frequencies of Wellbeing, the Philip Stein video podcast, a space for exploring ideas about natural frequency technology, mindfulness, and embracing your best self.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Philip Stein friends, and welcome to our very first podcast. We call our podcast Frequencies of Wellbeing because it's all about well-being, it's all about positivity, it's all about health, about feeling good. And what better person to start off our very first podcast than Dr. Jeff Gardere. Dr. Jeff Gardere, and I'm going to read this out because there are too many accolades here. Dr. Jeff, he's best known as America's Psychologist. In addition to having a private practice in Manhattan, Dr. Jeff is an assistant professor in behavioral medicine at Touro College of Osteopathic Medicine in New York City. He's also a prolific author of 4 books and a contributing author of several books. And in addition to that, he's also a contributor to multiple news channels. So, and in my honest opinion, he's also the best dressed and most fashionable psychologist in America, I would say. So welcome, Dr. Jeff. And Jeff, we've known each other for years, so I may call you Jeff now.
Yes, please. Thank you, Will.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. So it's really exciting to have you on our first show, Jeff, because especially during these times right now, where the world has really changed within months, basically in January, everything was fine. We interacted with our friends, we went to restaurants, and here we find ourselves now in our homes, going outside with masks, going to stores with masks, going to banks with masks. 4 months ago, you would have gotten arrested with that, So how has the world changed, and how can we keep our mind sane and be positive?
Well, I think, first of all, that we need to be really honest that this is, and what you're talking about, Will, this is completely unprecedented. We haven't seen anything like this in over 100 years. And it's very interesting, as a psychologist, I can tell you, but also as a citizen of Earth, like you, my fellow citizen, I can tell you that when we would talk about these particular post-apocalyptic sorts of situations, we thought this is something that would happen for generations on down. It wouldn't hurt our children or our grandchildren, but in about 200 years, we would see this violent change to the planet. Or we would talk about what happened in the past, the Spanish flu, World War I, World War II, the various wars, and so on, polio, but that we were protected here. And I think there is a culture shock. There is an emotional instability that we all share, of some anxiety, of some dysphoria, of post-traumatic stress disorder, because this is something, as you said it yourself, started sometime in January, and look at where we are now, and hundreds of thousands of cases, millions of cases, hundreds of thousands dead. But isn't it fascinating? It really feels that we went to bed one night in one world, and we woke up the next day in a different world. And I think this is what has people completely emotionally unbalanced. Now, Will, I've known you for many years. You've known me for many years. We consider ourselves to be, very conscious of emotional stability, of physical wellness, of a athletic and healthy, holistic lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
I would venture to say, even you and I, think about what happened to society, what happened to the world. It just stopped. And I have to share this. I'm working with patients from 6 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock in the evening, doing crisis intervention, doing workshops with different companies, working with all these different organizations to help people find their footing and begin to find the wellness, which is what we're doing today, to begin to live in this new world. But even I, as a psychologist, once it comes to 7 p.m. or 8 o'clock in the evening, and I'm sitting in the garden and I'm having my quarantini, and I'm, 3 green olives, a little bit of vodka, a little bit dirty, just like me. And I start asking my wife the same question over and over and over. What happened? What happened? Can you believe this happened? And I think it speaks to the fact that even if well-balanced individuals like some of us, especially those who live within the Philip Stein world of wellness, even we're affected by this. But imagine people who have not focused on keeping their psychological homeostasis, who have not looked at their anxiety levels, who have not really regarded the fact that they don't sleep well or get a good night's rest, which contributes to their being at risk for illnesses and other things and premature aging. People who never really paid attention to the importance of mental health.
Right.
Those people right now need to make a fundamental paradigm shift into wellness. If there was ever a time for us to take stock as to the fact that we have to have an evolution and a revolution in the way that we are living, in the way for us to adapt, in the way for us to learn to live in a new culture and a new society, in a way to take care of ourselves. Because after this, after COVID-19, then there'll be other COVID viruses, right?
Absolutely.
After this, there'll be global warming that people have turned a blind eye to. After this, there will be other sorts of fundamental aftershocks, financial, political, that we will have to deal with. So now more than ever, we must pay attention to the mind-body connection and the health of those two things in our lives right now.
I completely agree. And you mentioned something where you said, you sit down with your wife and then you sometimes think to yourself, how did this happen? And what's going on here? Where are we? And I have the same feeling sometimes. I sit down, but then I also think about our children, how our children are going to grow up. I remember you have a young child. My son is already now, my youngest is 19.
Yes.
So, he's an adult, but, the young children, how do you explain to them that right now we're wearing masks? You can only see the eyes of people. Will this also create a long-term trauma in people? And if yes, is there any way we can counteract on that or even be proactive?
Yes, certainly we must talk to our children, because our children don't talk to us about it as much, especially when we're dealing, with adolescents and young adults and teenagers. Their whole thing is, oh, whatever, there's nothing we could do about it. That's the way it is. But they truly are hurting inside. They really are looking at what they feel that their youth has been stolen from them. All of the things that go along with that, going out on dates and having graduation,
absolutely,
hanging out with friends, and they had a taste of it, and all of a sudden it's been pulled away from them. We as adults, it's easier for us, Will, because at least we have those memories. We have a knowledge of the world that we were in, but we also have the privilege of knowing the world that we're going in. So in some ways, even though this is wreaked havoc in many lives, so many people have died needlessly through this. For those who have survived, it's a privilege to be alive right now, because these are things that will be written about in the history books, and we are the test case. We're living it now. But our children are really feeling this right now. So the way that we talk to them is just being available to them, by letting them know how much we love them and want to protect them, by letting them know that it is about adapting to the world. And they're learning this lesson at a very young age, that they need to do the things that they have to do in order to be healthy and happy in this new world. And we can guide them in that way through our own behaviors. Things will be different. We won't be able to shake hands anymore. Hygiene will have to be something that is, at the top of our lists. I don't think people will be sitting in stadiums with 5,000 people, even when, and I'm saying when, even when, not if, when a vaccine does come along. These are those long-term emotional scars that you referred to, the trauma that we will be living with, because we will not be able to go to back to some of those old ways, because psychologically we can't handle that. But being able to model for our children what this new life is the best thing that we can do. How they can prepare themselves, how can they protect themselves, that's what we need to show them. How they can actually sit down in front of computers and learn. Of course, there'll be some brick and mortar learning, but they won't be going to school full time in the way that they once did, not for a while anyway. So these are all the things that we can prepare them with, but not with a sense of dread, not with a sense of anger, not with a sense of sorrow, but with a sense of excitement, because this is a new world where we can leave behind a lot of the cultural practices that were so destructive to who we are as human beings. And we, as the adults moving forward into this new world, this needs to be our finest hour. We've got to find ways to support one another. We've got to find ways to learn lessons from this. We've got to find ways to save our planet. And we really have to do a complete recalibration. But I know that we can do this. Now, of course, and I'm not going to get into it, Will, we are woefully inadequate as to the leadership that we all should have in moving forward. But each of us need to be leaders in our own homes, in our own families, and in our own communities, and not leave that tremendous burden, which is almost an impossible job, to any one person or any one government. This is where we must all work together as citizens of the world.
Now, you mentioned, we need to talk not in a dreadful way. We need to talk about in an excited way about the changes and all of this, even though there's a lot of tragedy going on and all of these things and the deaths, which is devastating. But, what is, for you personally now, what do you see as a positive outcome of all of this? For you personally, where do you see, great changes, great shifts, which help, let's say, society in the long run?
I have started learning, even though as a friend of yours and as a consultant to Philip Stein in the past, and, to some extent, even now, because we look at scientific studies together on the Philip Stein products, I have learned that I should not take for granted. Yes, I have great health. Yes, I'm into, getting the proper amount of sleep and eating the right foods and having a healthy lifestyle. But one of the things that I missed was what was going on with being mindful, living for today, living in the moment, taking pleasure and looking at those trees that are behind you and that beautiful home that you're in right now, looking at my home and looking at the grass and looking at the lake and standing at the lake. I forgot all about that. It was all about working. Well, the other day I was sitting in my living room. You referred to my having children. I have 6 children from 28 down to 3 years old. And I was sitting with my wife and I said, honey, who are these little kids that are running through the living room? Are those neighbors? She says, those are your children. I was like, oh my goodness, I finally get to watch my children grow up. And Will, and I know you feel the same, when I look in the eyes of my children or any other child, I see the face of God. And this is what I have learned: to love life, to love my family, to love this planet, to love my neighbors, because at the end of the day, that's all we have is love. Love cannot be conquered. Love is the answer.
I absolutely get it. And you know how much I used to travel.
Yes,
Now, you know, with all of this happening, all of a sudden we see we don't need to travel that much anymore. I don't need to be on planes anymore. I can be in a beautiful environment with trees around and, you know, love the nature, love my family, spend time with the family. So it's a complete shift of what we're used to, you
yes,
know. And you mentioned mindfulness, very important, I think, in especially right now, that people are thankful and grateful for the small things that they have. Maybe there are certain challenges, but you need to be mindful and grateful for the small things that you have.
absolutely.
You
And
need to
as
be appreciative, you know,
yes,
and you need to see the little things. You cannot only always look at the negativity, but you need to see the little positive things. And, you know, out of these little positive things grows then the positive attitude.
and that's what we need to go into this new world. And I so agree with what you're saying. Um, we chase these dreams and we chase these goals, and the dreams and the goals are right in front of us. We can do them where we are right now, even though we will move around again and we'll do the things that we need to do. But we've been forced to slow down. And you talk about being grateful, for having our homes, having a roof over our heads, having our families. As we are grateful for those things, we need to be even much more empathetic and much more mindful of people who don't have those things. And that it is our duty, really, our responsibility to help those people who don't have those things to be able to have a decent roof over their heads, to be able to feed their children, to be able to have an education for their children. We cannot live in our ivory towers, but yet watch all the people below us suffer. That has got to stop. That has got to end as part of our new world.
I agree. And to me, this is one of the most fulfilling things when I can help people. You know,
Well,
that's
we've
why.
done with your philanthropy through Philip Stein. So this is a wonderful thing.
Exactly. And that's why, you know, I from the moment we started Philip Stein until today, I'm very passionate about Philip Stein because I see the results. I see not only the results in terms of studies. We just got a published study, and now we got approved for another published study. But I see the results in people. They telling me how it has changed their lives, how the sleep has improved for them. So you have worn Philip Stein for quite some time. And before we actually reached out to you, because we liked your whole persona. We liked the way you spoke about health and well-being, and that's why we asked you several years ago to be like an ambassador and consultant for Philip Stein. But even before that, I remember you telling me that you had a Philip Stein watch. So why don't you tell our listeners how you came across the Philip Stein watch? And then also, what has it done for you? I mean, what are the benefits of you wearing Philip Stein?
So I came across Philip Stein even before I had met you, Will. Before I started working with Philip Stein watches, I was very much into the natural frequency technology, how in many ways the explanation, the proprietary science that you had with it, in many ways was the energy of the earth at rest. And that
Mhm.
made sense to me because this was a way that I could stay centered and grounded, no pun intended, right?
Exactly.
And But the thing was, I loved the style of the watch. It was a beautiful watch. And then I started meeting other people. The dean of my medical school was wearing a Philip Stein watch. Other friends of mine were wearing Philip Stein watches. Of course, you know, once I got involved, I had understood what was going on with Oprah Winfrey in the early 2000s with the Philip Stein watches, giving them to her audience as the next big thing and so on. And then eventually, years later, met my now wife, who's a physician, who was having issues with sleep. I got her the Philip Stein sleep bracelet, and she wears it every night. It has helped her with her sleep. It has helped her have a more restful day because she had a more restful night, so has the energy that she needs. And I've recommended it to many friends. But the other part of it is, and this is what I really respect about Philip Stein as a company, it's not just about the watch or the bracelets. It's also about the lifestyle that Philip Stein promotes. Having the mind-body connection, having a homeostasis where you have the proper energy during the day and the proper rest at night, and living a lifestyle that is holistic, that is about exercise, that is about dynamism, that is about being healthy. So it's not just for me what it does with the natural frequency technology. It's not just people stopping me all the time and saying, that's a beautiful watch. And I have several watches, actually. This is my sports model, but you know, I have the ones that have the dual faces and so on. But more than anything else, it's about the lifestyle that it fits in with my lifestyle. I'm now going on 65 years old.
You look amazing.
And so do you, by the way, Will.
Thank
and, you know, I'm working out every single day.
Amazing.
Because I'm raising young children. I love being healthy. You know, I take care of my mind. I take care of my body. But it is also natural frequency technology is part of my life. It's part, you know, it's in many ways, I like when you say a life in tune is a life well lived. And that's what I have now. And that's what's helping me get through into this new world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, you mentioned, you know, well, first of all, thank you for the testimonial, but, you know, so many other people have given us testimonials, but for us, it was very important because we're dealing also a little bit with the scientific world.
That's
We
exactly.
wanted to have validation, you know, and I don't know, I think I sent it to you. We got published, our sleep study got published in the International Sleep Science Journal.
Yes.
And I can tell you some incredible news. I just received it yesterday that our watch study, because we did a watch study on perceived stress and relaxation and things like that. And the results came out so good that we're going to get this one published in another scientific journal, which you might have heard of because you're a psychologist. It's called Brain and Behavior.
Ah, yes. Okay, yes.
So we're going to be published there. And what we saw in our study is actually that when people wore the watch during the day, they had a longer duration of sleep. Number one. And number two, that the focus and memory increased during the day. So I asked the scientists, why is that correlated to the duration of sleep? And they explained to me that, you know, when you're more focused, when you are more organized, when you can think better, when you're, you know, more clear, then you're also you're not in that parasympathetic, you're not in the sympathetic mode, you know, you're in the parasympathetic mode so that you can also go to sleep better and sleep longer. Is that what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I have reviewed several of the articles, if you remember, and actually spoken to some of the researchers who had done the work.
Right.
And the things that I saw that, we discussed and we saw a real improvement in the scientific studies was that we increased the number of people who were in the studies in order to make them more significant. We knew from the anecdotal information, we knew from the smaller sample sizes that something very interesting and positive was going on. But now the more studies you do, the more increase of subjects that you have, the more definitive those results. But
Exactly.
I think for many, many people, even though it's important to have those scientific studies, it's the people who are on the ground and the people who are experiencing it and the people who are living their everyday life who have been benefits of what has been going on with Philip Stein with natural frequency technology. And so I think for those people, it's great to have the scientific studies, but it's what they're doing every day and how it's assisted them that's important for them. But you're absolutely right. You've got to keep publishing. You got to keep going into the different journals because people do want to see some of those studies to validate the things that a lot of people have already experienced.
And you're absolutely right. The study can be fantastic and great, but if it doesn't work for yourself, then it really has no use for you,
Right.
But we see that really a very, very small percentage doesn't see any benefit in it. In fact, in the study of sleep, we saw that 100% of people who tested the sleep bracelet, they experienced one of the sleep quality measures.
Yes.
And 86% reported a better overall quality of sleep, 86%. So that's pretty significant. Coming back to the daily life, do you think it's important, especially also now, to have a certain routine to get your homeostasis and your well-being? You mentioned that you work out. You mentioned mindfulness. If you don't mind, and I ask you personally, how do you start your day? What do you do, and then how do you end your day so that you are really in this balance?
Well, and it's a great question, Will, and I love answering this question because I also give it as advice to my clients. If you talk the talk, you better walk the walk.
Absolutely.
I think it's important that we give this kind of information to so many people who are listening. A lot of us, the majority of us, have had to shelter in place. And this is why we tip our hats to the frontline workers, to the essential workers, to the medical personnel,
Yes.
to our police officers, to our firefighters, to the EMS. These are the new superheroes. And I like to point out to them, because I speak to them all the time, they may be superheroes, but they're not superhuman. So it's important that they take care of themselves. But what we see for the vast majority of people who've had to shelter in place, who've had to stay home, is they become disoriented. They don't know from one day to another what it is. Is it Monday? Is it Wednesday? What day is it? When the weekend comes along, they can't tell the difference between a Friday night and a Tuesday night. And those things are sad. Those things are sad. They find themselves perhaps sitting at home in pajamas all day, or not bathing as often as they should, or waking up very late. They've lost their way as far as the circadian rhythm, and that's why they're having major problems with sleep, overdoing it on food, comfort foods and alcohol and so on. And so that's why it's important, and this is what I do. And it may be different for other people, but you have to reestablish a routine which in many ways mirrors the routine we had in the old world. Now, in the new world, even though we're doing things in a very different way, we must bring some of the culture and certainly the routine and the self-discipline from the old world. What's old, we have to make new. What's new can be old, but it has to be part of the new world. So getting up at 6 o'clock every morning, that's my thing. I don't need an alarm clock. I've had a good night's rest. Take off my sleep bracelet, put on my watch, and immediately I do my exercise. I'm not going to give you the name of the bike that I'm on because they're not a sponsor, but do that. You know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I do that 6 to 7 days a week, and then I'll go to the backyard no matter what the temperature is, but especially if it's warmer, a bit warmer, then I do all my calisthenics. Then from there, I will get some vitamin D through my eggs, have some orange juice, and then start the day. And then it's working through I've never worked so hard in my life in the new world. So it's like seeing patients from 8 in the morning, teaching class, writing articles, doing TV shows. I'm a television anchor now.
Yeah, I saw that. Congratulations.
I'm like, hey, Ma, look, I'm a TV anchor now. So, doing all of those things and then ending at about 7 or 8.
When you say seeing patients, you see them via
medicine.
Okay.
By telemedicine.
Telemedicine.
And then in the evening, de-stressing, having one drink, not 2 or 3, because you don't want to overdo it because that gets in the way of your sleeping in the evening, and just spending the time with family. But what I'm talking about is having a discipline, putting your clothes on, wear casual clothes if you need to, wear jeans, but don't walk around in the house in pajamas. Don't, make sure you bathe every day. Of course, some of us don't have beautiful hair like you will, but it's important that, we at least, shave or maintain some sort of hygiene in the home. So all of those things are about self-discipline. It's about routine. It's about having a reason for living every day, even while at home.
Thank you for that advice. And do you see that people are losing this? They're losing their routines. They're losing their zest for life because of all of this?
Yes, absolutely. And I tell them they cannot succumb to mediocrity now. They can't allow their lack of homeostasis, lack of emotional stability to then further put them in a situation of bad health. Because as we know, healthy mind, healthy body, healthy body, healthy mind. You can't separate the two. So it's not just about getting telemedicine. It's not just about getting teletherapy. It's not just about even just working out, but it's also about having a whole routine that gives us a purpose for life, that gives us energy, and that allows us to be mindful of the fact that we are alive in one of the most extraordinary times that we'll ever see. Let's not sleepwalk through this time, because it is absolutely amazing every day, every minute, what is happening right now with us.
Thank you. And it was funny when you mentioned the healthy mind, healthy body, and I have here a few notes, and I was just reading exactly that note. What you think about it's so a little bit a cliche, mind, body, and soul, but at the end of the day, it is the truth, because it all works in harmony and it works together. And that's what creates the homeostasis and the equilibrium within us. And that's what Philip Stein does with the natural frequency technology to help you optimize this equilibrium and homeostasis.
Absolutely, and it's natural.
Exactly.
Natural frequency technology from Mother Earth itself, that it mimics what we get from Mother Earth. And it's very interesting too, now that we are surrounded by devices, now that we're surrounded by all of these electromagnetic waves and so on, that we not be bombarded by it at the same time. And we know with our natural frequency technology, it helps us in avoiding those things and canceling out those things and dealing with the frequency that matches with our body and our body matching with that natural frequency, which is where now we get the ability to be able to be more within that homeostasis and matching ourselves to the frequencies of our planet. We can't separate ourselves from that.
No, we can't.
In some days I want to cry when I see how we are denying and the climate changes. I won't get into the politics of it, but our climate is changing, the world is changing, and we've got to save it while we can, because it has what we need to live.
100%. 100%. Well said. Very well said. Okay, Jeff, what we usually do, and usually this is the first time now, but what I want to do is I want to wrap it up with, it's basically, I'm going to give you 5 words, 5 expressions, and you just give me off the top of your head the association to this word, what comes first to your mind, okay? And it's all about positivity. It's not politics or anything like that. That comes in a different podcast when it's not public. Okay, so the first word is love.
Essential.
Passion.
Always.
Mindfulness.
A work in progress, but great work if you can get it.
Courage.
Not just for the individual, but for our complete society.
And the last one, happiness.
Makes the world go round.
Beautiful. Jeff, I thank you so much for being so informative and positive about this outlook here, which we have, which, by the way, before I go, do you think it's going to change anytime soon? Do you think that there will ever be a change? Do you think we're going to go with masks to the stores now for years? What is your personal opinion on that? What do you think?
I really do believe, Will, that it will be quite some time. I know we're rushing to reopen the world. And of course, there are economic and financial concerns as part of that. But I think that it is going to be quite some time until we find what the new normal is. So we may not possibly have to wear masks to sit with smaller crowds, especially if we're looking at some sort of herd immunity. But certainly, I think that people sitting in stadiums or sitting in places where there's so many people that because of the PTSD, people will naturally just throw on their masks. They're going to design them. They're going to be part of tuxedos and evening dresses. They're going to be very fashionable. And people will say to themselves, why take a chance if there are so many people around us and the possibility of any kind of illness? Let's just go ahead and throw on the mask. So they may not wear them all the time, but it will be part of the gear that we wear around our necks, just like the way we wear headphones, just the way that people used to ride in subways and in cars and hold on to their phones all the time. The PPE, the masks, the gloves, all of those things will be something that will become part of our lives. Look at Japan. Look at China. There were people there who were wearing masks before anything like this happened because it became part of the culture of cleanliness and minimizing contagion.
So maybe Philip Stein needs to get into the production of masks and gloves with natural frequency technology.
I think you just came upon something.
But hopefully I can give you a big bear hug next time when I see you in New York, or maybe when you come out to LA without a mask and with bare hands. So
and we look forward to that. But in the meantime, we can give ourselves air hugs. Necessity is the mother of invention.
okay. Be hugged, and thank you so much.
Thank you. I feel the love.
Thank you, Jeff.